All right, everyone. Well, welcome to another edition of the Unpredictable Pipeline. In this ongoing series, we are talking to marketing leaders from various industries around North America on how they are pivoting this year, pivoting their teams, pivoting their companies, pivoting their industries, and really addressing the headwinds that 2020 has brought to us. Excited to have with us today Mohammed Yasin. He is the Executive Vice President of Marketing for PERQ. And Mohammed, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, talk a little bit about so first of all, maybe just sort of introduce yourself and the company and what you guys do, and then talk about what it was like, the early part of 2020 when things started shutting down a little bit.
Yeah, so I think this conversation is probably going to focus on two different areas of my professional life for sure. As you mentioned, I am the Executive Vice President of Marketing for PERQ. PERQ is an AI shopping technology company that focuses primarily in the apartment space, or what they call multifamily industry. And then second to that, I am also the co-founder of Agile Marketing Podcast and Agile Marketing Indie, which is a professional group of what we like to call process-minded marketers, looking for new ways to get shit done. And really in that area, that's focused primarily on a in-person event, monthly meetup event, educational style. And of course, that changed immediately, right? As soon as COVID hit, we definitely made the decision to not host those in-person events. It just simply wasn't safe. And to lean a little bit more into our podcast. And then at PERQ, we were primarily an in-office SaaS company, right? We had a few remote employees across the country, but by and far, about 95% of our employees came to work in the office every day. And that's really how we collaborated and got things done. And that also had to change literally at the drop of a dime. We had a meeting on a Friday afternoon, said, hey, we're going home. We're going to try to figure this out. And we haven't been back since. It's been a while. And, at this point, it's all speed ahead, right? We're just going to keep going with this. And we found that we actually are far more productive and creative working, on our couches than we were coming in the office every day.
Well, and I would also imagine that your background and experience as an agile marketer has really helped you this year as well. I think a lot of people have had to adjust to the rapid changes that this year has brought. What are some lessons from the world of agile marketing that have been particularly valuable that you've seen others take advantage of this year as well?
Sure. So one of the principles I really like around agile marketing is this idea that although you are making plans and you're making quick iterations of those, you are open to the idea of change. And that's really what sprints are all about, right? At PERQ, we were running my team on 2-week sprints. We plan what we're going to do for the following 2 weeks. We execute on that. We do a retro on how it worked, and then we plan the next 2 weeks. And the idea that really is that, especially in a software company that's in a fast growth mode, things are going to change rapidly. Right. And having that mindset, even that it's okay that you're going to shift rapidly back and forth, honestly puts you in better headspace to tackle some of these challenges and avoid some of the emotional, I think, toil of going through change in general. Now, we did have to go even faster than we're used to. We shifted our 2-week sprints down to 1-week sprints, which quite honestly, we would have thought was absurd 2-3 years ago. We tried it before. It was hectic. It was crazy. It didn't work. It worked in this environment. We sat down every Friday, regrouped, and said, where are we at? Where are our customers at? Where is the industry at? What does the sales team and CS team need to do their job next week? Right. And then we made a plan and we executed on it. And I'll be honest, 9 times out of 10, come Wednesday the next week, it changed again. But we were ready for it, and we had the mechanism in place to receive those requests and respond to them and prioritize really well.
Well, and in that moment, I mean, part of agility is being open to the diversity of ideas as well. And I think, we were operating in an environment where, we didn't know what the rules were. There weren't a whole lot of precedents to tell us how that would work. Talk about how you operationalize that diversity, because sometimes the diversity of ideas and being open to ideas can actually lead to some chaos when you've got different competing opinions. Like, how do you organize that and operationalize that?
Well, I think that one thing that COVID did across everything, and this is not just work, this is personal as well. COVID and quarantine put priorities into perspective, right? And I think that a lot of what we see with some of that back and forth unhealthy dialogue when
Hmm.
you're in the creation mode is really from um, personal opinions or things that may not be true priorities, but we literally had the luxury of having those conversations, right?
Yeah.
Because there was nothing really at stake for us. When you get boiled down and you're like, all right, we need to grow. The entire economy just shut down. We need to find some value. It suddenly becomes very, very clear what you should be spending your time on, what you should be spending your resources on, what you should be spending your money on,
Hmm.
both professionally and personally. And that really narrowed that, right? So it turned into really productive working conversations in those first couple of weeks with lots of stakeholders at the table, as many people there as possible to say, what should we be doing?
Hmm.
And then having some really healthy dialogue and making decisions fast, because also, basic management thing, people will take as long as you give them to get the job done, generally, right? There are
Hmm.
certainly exceptions to that rule. But this is company wide, right? This is
Yeah.
industry wide. All of a sudden, we need to figure this out this week
Yeah.
or we're dead,
Yep.
right? And that's really when, not to say we were facing death, but we were certainly facing some serious impacts to our pipeline. And that really accelerated for PERQ the ability for us to go from a product life cycle that usually took a couple of months, at least a quarter from ideation to development,
Hmm.
to us doing the idea and rolling out with full enablement in sales, full marketing, et cetera, a brand new product within 10 days,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
But we had to do that because we had to provide that value to our customers in order to
Yep.
help them keep afloat.
The other thing you've talked about relative to a lesson from this year is the importance of authenticity. And I think in a time when sort of people are they're afraid for their jobs, they're afraid for their health, they're not sure where, there's so many just levels of chaos that we've sort of dealt with this year.
Mm-hmm.
How do you maintain a level of authenticity as a professional, as a leader, and as a company?
Sure,
And how do you continue to do that, well into 2021?
sure. I'm gonna go back to my first therapist on this one, Matt.
Okay.
So, all right. So in my early 20s, early in my career, I was working for Victoria's Secret corporate at that particular point in time, and it was a very brand driven environment, both as an organization but also as individuals, and how you presented yourself and how you managed that.
Hmm.
And it was causing me a lot of stress, honestly. And my therapist told me once that you have a finite amount of space mentally and emotionally,
Hmm.
right? Um, if you are projecting a self that is not authentic and unique to you, then that means you are consistently using a percentage of that space to manage that particular brand perception and make
Yeah.
sure it's out there, right? And make sure you're not screwing it up in any moment, and make sure you're wearing the right thing and saying the right thing and sounding and reacting. But the moment you allow yourself to really be authentic to yourself as an individual, or your company, honestly, your company's voice, even to be authentic to what it is as a culture, all of a sudden you free that space up and you can use it for more important or valuable things, right? You can build that product in 10 days when you're not worried about who who should we be viewed as. And instead, in times of stress, I believe people's true selves come out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you say, nope, I'm just going to be who I am right now, both as a company and as as an individual. And I truly believe, really, with PERQ, we found our voice, in this time, because we didn't have to worry about, as a smaller growth company, who should we be. We got to
Hmm.
just focus on, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is the
Yeah.
value we're providing to you right now. And that just rocketed us forwards, I believe, from a marketing perspective.
I love it. Well, I mean, those are sort of three good lessons, I think, for sort of getting through a difficult year and really sort of, as things, eventually sort of, get to be a post-pandemic time, just good lessons just in general to manage and lead.
Absolutely.
Last question
Absolutely.
for you. So you've been working from your couch for the last 6 or 7 months.
Yes, I have.
We're gonna be doing it. We're gonna be doing it. I'm in the basement here. We're gonna be doing this into next year for a little bit. When we're allowed to get back out and do things that are a little more like normal from the beginning of the year, what's something you're looking forward to that you haven't been able to do, and maybe what's something that now that you have been experienced this level of life and work, what's something you're not looking
Sure.
forward to getting back to that was part of your old life?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because it's once again, I think I'm thinking in little chunks of time. I can't see 2021 right now from a
I know.
personal perspective, right? I'm
Yeah.
forcing myself to do budget planning from a company perspective, but from personal perspective, it's hard to say. So from the perspective of working on the couch, that's something that we decided to lean into to the point where we literally put a for sale sign up in our front yard at the office. Right,
Wow. Yeah.
we're not going back. We're going to stay right here where we are. So I was not looking forward to that commute back into the office, but luckily I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can just roll out
Nice.
of bed and come right over here.
Yep.
From a personal perspective, I think a lot of marketers, we generally tend to be extroverts, right?
Mm-hmm.
By and far. And that is something I'm certainly missing. You get a little bit of that energy through a video chat, through, jumping on a podcast, etc. But there is nothing like the energy of being around other people.
Yep.
And being able to hang out with them and talk with them, whether they be friends or family or coworkers or acquaintances, etc. I am certainly missing that. I am missing from the agile marketing perspective, being back in those rooms of other smart marketers where we can all just have an organic conversation that comes up and learn something surprising and delighting in the moment every month.
Got it. Got it. Love it. Well, Mohammed Yasin, Vice President of Marketing for PERQ, thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Some really good lessons for this year. Eventually, we'll get to 2021. I realize we got a little in front of us and before that. But thanks for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for watching another edition of The Unpredictable Pipeline.
Thanks for having me.